All right, so I'm going to, for what I'm going to teach you today, I'm going to use the same runner dude that I was using in the previous demos. But for you guys, what you'll be using is obviously you're going to be building a new character. And he won't be animated yet, or she won't be animated yet. It's just going to be standing still when you start to design it. That's okay. Even if you were to start a run cycle or start working on what the character is going to do, as long as you edit within the symbol, this will work. It's when you start changing the armature itself that you start getting into a lot of trouble with the way the animations work. And CS 5.5, since we've upgraded since last week, we now have CS 5.5. Things might be different. We're going to be discovering things along the way here that have changed because the software was upgraded. I'm just hoping that it makes things a little less buggy. I'm hoping that there are certain things that happen that are a little bit better off. But anyway, we talked about last time. Oops, see, I just moved them by accident, so the pen's not always a great idea. We talked about earlier on taking this guy. Oh, look, and so actually this has happened to a lot of people, so I want to draw your attention to it before I continue. You'll notice that my guy should actually be over here off the screen at the beginning, but right now he's in the middle because it looks as if Flash has, for some strange reason, automatically moved his center point. This has happened to a lot of people in class. This is a real pain in the butt. But Flash just seems to do it on its own, and I'm not quite sure why. Now, with some objects, if that happens, you can actually double-click into the object, and you could try moving it. This little crosshairs is technically the center of your object, theoretically, but the problem with that is if I start moving him around here with an IK layer, then I'm actually changing my pose. So I really don't want to do that. What I need to do, unfortunately enough, is I need to take the, now let's move to Animator. I need to take the modify, the free transform tool, and I need to move him, I'm going to move his center point back to the center of his body, which now moves the whole path, and then now I need to move him back to here, and then unfortunately enough, my path is now too long, so I can just grab the path here. Let's go to small so I can, oh, still can't quite see it. So I can go to the end here, and then I'll just move him back. So basically I'm just resetting that last keyframe. So you just kind of have to readjust them when that happens. Usually it happens once, and then after you reset them, it doesn't happen again. I don't know why. This is kind of frustrating. But there is no undo there because as soon as you open it up, it's changed, and it wasn't that way when you saved it. I don't know why Flash does that, but you just kind of have to deal with it. Okay, so back to the actual demonstration. So one of the things that you're going to do is you're going to give this guy, or this character of yours, you're going to give them a more realistic look at clothing, at shadows and highlights. We really want to start looking at that kind of a thing so that we can get a better sense of depth. A little bit more of a complicated character as far as the clothing is concerned. So I'm going to introduce you to a new tool today that I think could actually really be helpful. If I were to, say, work on this guy's sleeve, for instance, if I just go in and click on that symbol, if you remember the demo correctly, I have my base layer, which is my skin, essentially, which right now is just flat gray, and then on a separate layer, I drew a shirt. Okay, can you see that? And that's how I want you to do this. You want to do everything on separate layers within the symbol. Some of you were making the mistake of trying to put the extra layer here above the armature. Well, if you do that, then when the arm moves, the sleeve stays in the same place because it's not tied in with the bones. It's on a separate layer. So you have to have it inside the symbol for the arm. The other mistake some of you were making with our test running guy is you were trying to put some of this, like the whole shirt in the arm. or the sleeve for the arm in the symbol for the body. And of course, when he started running, then his arm would come out from underneath the sleeve because it wasn't moving with the arm anymore, it was staying with the torso. So you have to be really specific here and realize that each object has to be in the symbol with which it's moving. That's a really complicated way of saying, basically, if the sleeve is supposed to move with the upper arm, it needs to be inside the symbol with the upper arm. Does everybody understand that? I want to see your heads nodding. Okay? That's really important. So now, what we want to do is, this is a good sleeve, but I want to start adding a little bit of life to this. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can go about doing this, and actually, sometimes you can blend them together. So I'm going to see if I can blend these ideas together. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to kind of add a roundness to the object. I want to get it looking a little bit like a shade. And what we have, just like in Photoshop, is there is a gradient that we can apply to an object that allows us to kind of have it shade. And I'm going to show you why you would want to use a gradient over just shading with a brush in a second. Because that's actually one thing where Flash really changes over what you might be used to within Photoshop, is the brushes don't really have the same edges. So remember with the brush how you could fade the edges in Photoshop, you could feather the edges out, okay, with a soft edge brush. Well, Flash doesn't really work that way. So you have to use gradients. So for instance, if right now this is what's really cool is, see here, it knows that the tablet is plugged in, and it says use pressure and use tilt. And what that'll do is, that means with the tablet, the harder I press, the darker the value gets, which is pretty cool. And then the lighter I press, the lighter that color gets. So what I can do is, with the tablet, I can go in, and let's just create a new layer. So what I should do here is just call this shirt base layer, and then I'm actually going to do everything on new layers, and that way I can control stuff. If I start to paint directly onto the layer with the shirt, the t-shirt sleeve on it, I'm really going to be asking for trouble, because if I don't like what I've done, when I paint, well, here, let me illustrate it for you. If I take a brush, okay, and let's get a different color. So I'm going to choose my, whoops. Why isn't it choosing the red? Well, anyway, if I choose my red color here, why? Is that not strange or what? Okay, well, anyway, it's not doing what I was expecting there. If I just go in here and I then paint, let me, I can darken this red a little bit just with the slider here. Oh, it's selecting things. Okay, if I then go in and I try to paint a different color with the paintbrush, and I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to paint, okay? No, it's not even really letting me. So here is a good illustration of the difference between CS4 and CS5, is it's not even really letting me paint on the same thing. Good. Because what would happen is, in CS4, if I painted in here, it would go. And then if I didn't like it, let's say I would select it and try and delete it, you just have a hole there. But that's not good, right? Although, oh, I bet you I know. If I double click and I get inside the drawing, okay. So now it will probably let me do it, because I double clicked and I got inside the drawing object. There. So now you see I've painted a shadow in here. And if I don't like it, and I click and I delete it, notice what happens. It actually puts a hole in the shirt. So what's important to realize about this is, if you paint right on top of your existing layers, it replaces the color. You're not actually painting over top of it. It replaces the original color that was there, and then if you don't like it, you're stuck, and then when you try and delete, it creates a hole. So we're not gonna do that. We're gonna go on separate layers. So I'm gonna get back out of the drawing object, and I'm gonna click up on the layer here, and I'm gonna call this layer shading. Now I can grab my pen, which makes this a little easier. Click my brush. The brush sizes and stuff like that are here. So you can choose the brush size. Now, one of the main problems, again, that I have with Flash is these brush sizes aren't measured in pixels like they are in Photoshop. So they stay the same size no matter whether you zoom in or zoom out. Let me say that again. They stay the same size whether you zoom in or zoom out. So right now I'm at 738%. You see that right here? Look at my brush size. However, if I zoom out a little, see how the brush size stays the same relative to the screen, but now it's bigger relative to the sleeve. This can cause you a lot of troubles. This can cause you a lot of troubles because if you want to match brush sizes, what you really need to do is remember exactly what percentage you were at. Well, I don't remember that all the time. I don't know about you guys. I can't remember 738% for tomorrow. So basically, you know, you're going to have to kind of figure it out. There's really I don't really have a great answer for this problem for you, except maybe you go in here and you type 700%. That's a number that maybe I can remember. Unfortunately enough, now I don't know where my character is. There he is. Maybe. There he is. And now I know tomorrow maybe I'll be able to remember that I was at 700%. Maybe. Write it down if you have problems remembering numbers. So anyway, what I can do is with this little slider here, I can try to start painting some type of a shadow. And what's cool is Flash will smooth things out for you. So as I add to that, it kind of smooths it out. Now if you've got that shadow line across your sleeve, you might eat into it a little bit. So you might be able to see that what I did is I kind of made it a little thinner here because I'm painting over top. I'm going to show you how to get around that in a minute. So I've kind of got a nice dark line there. I'm going to fade it down a little bit more, and I'll go to even a smaller brush here. With an even darker color, and you can see how I'm basically, in a set of gradations, I'm kind of creating a shadow. I actually don't like that, so I'm going to undo it and go even a little darker. But what you should really notice, I'm going to zoom in now, cause problems for myself, because now I need to move to a bigger brush. So you got to remember these brushes are not the same size by pixels. So now I can kind of go in here and I can kind of paint this out and put a darker shade in here. But if you can see this, there's always going to be this subtle line. There's always going to be kind of this, it doesn't grade out. And it kind of has an interesting look to it. So I don't know if I really mind too much, but I do get a little frustrated with it sometimes, because I would like it to fade in a little bit more than it really does. Oops, I wanted to go bigger, not smaller. But you can kind of see how, with some careful, working, I can kind of come up with an interesting shading effect. This actually might be more useful for things like wrinkles and stuff, where if I wanted to get the idea that the shirt was wrinkled, or maybe that he had a muscle, I could go in and kind of paint that line in, you see? That's really what this would be best for. If you're actually trying to do gentle shading to make something look like it's round, this isn't the best thing. So what I'm trying to do is show you like not the best example before I give you a better example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this one off and lock it. And let's go back down to our base here. and you can see that I've got this color. What I can do is I can change that from a solid color to a gradient. Now the problem that I'm having here is it immediately goes to black, but you'll see right here I can just slide this up and I should get my red color again. And so what you see is it's going to go from red to white. What I really want to do is I want to go three-step. I want the red in the middle, and then I want kind of a darkish, blackish color on the outside, and then I want a lighter red in the middle. So I'm going to do this, and then you can just click here, and it's going to make another color, and then I can slide that one down. So you can see I've selected it. So I'll go kind of like that. Then the red's in the middle, and then instead of pure white, what I'm going to do here is slide this up to make it kind of pinkish. But I don't want to, there we go. I don't want to go too yellow, too orangish. I just really want to just kind of move towards the white as best as I can in a neutral color. So now that looks good, but what's the obvious problem? Does anybody see the obvious problem here? Look at the direction that the shading is going. Does it look round? It looks weird because my shading is going up and down, when if I was really worried about this looking like it was round, it should be going sideways. Now I tell you what, it took me a long time to figure out how to do this, but the answer is very simple. Underneath your free transform tool is the gradient transform tool. And this gradient transform tool allows you to click on the gradient and to rotate it. Okay, this is super cool. To make it smaller. To adjust where, how it slides on here. It's pretty amazing when you think about how you can do that. So now if you look at this, I've got a nice shadow here. I've got a nice highlight on this side, and it's going in about the right direction. So now what I can do is I can then go to my layer shading, the layer that I did, and that's useless now. You see? So I can actually get rid of this completely, trash it. And I've got a much better look right now than I did before. We should do the same thing with the arm probably. So, or the skin I should say. So I'm going to turn that off and lock it. Go down to my base layer, and up here it's already selected, so I'm just going to click color and go to linear gradient. Now it's going to throw in that, it's going to go to the red, which is kind of annoying. But the good news is we can probably just figure this out really easily by going to so you take the red all the way down, and what we can do here is we can adjust the brightness. So you see how it gives you hue, saturation, and brightness? It's HSB. So now I can kind of figure out my middle, so about 50%. Then click on this one, set everything back to 0 here for the red, green, and blue. And then again, set my brightness. I don't want it pure black. I just want a little bit. And then same thing here. Set the red all the way down, set the green all the way down, set the blue all the way down, hue all the way down, saturation all the way down, and now my brightness just about all the way up. And now, just take my gradient transform tool, set it this way, line it up so that it's basically parallel with the arm, and now when I turn on the shirt, well, look at that. That's looking pretty good, isn't it? That's looking a lot more round. Now, it's overly smooth, okay? It's going to look a little fake because of, the fact that you have, this perfect gradient. But again, using some of the drawing tools, the pen tool that I just showed you, you can kind of figure some things out. Now, one of the other things that you can do, or one of the things that's bothering me right now right here, is that I have no shadow on the arm from the shirt. So if I'm looking at this and I'm trying to make this look good, I'm thinking, you know, this is cool, but I don't have a shadow on the shirt or on the arm that's from the shirt. Does that make sense? And this is why I have you guys sketching all the time. It's because these are things that you should see. These are things that you need to look at and go, oh, this is missing. And how are you going to know that it's missing if you haven't drawn it in the first place? So this is one of the reasons why I have you guys sketching, even though this is a computer graphics class. It's really important for you to be able to see stuff like that. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough. It's really important. You have to be able to see these things, and if you don't draw them, you won't know that they have to be there when you go to the computer. And the computer's not going to do it for you either. You've got to have a good understanding of how this works. So, in order to make that shadow, I can do this. I'm actually just going to create a whole nother layer here, and I'm just going to grab a quick box, like so. Oh, cool, it already comes in with a gradient. That's kind of nice, actually. I'm going to take my free transform tool on it, and I'm going to set it this way a little bit. Whoops, yep, there it is. And I'm going to lock the other two layers so I don't mess them up. And now I'm going to take my gradient transform, and I'm going to rotate it so that the white is down here like so. And then shrink it so that we're looking pretty good here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go over here and I'm going to get rid of this middle line. So I think I can just hit the delete key. Nope. How do I?
Drag it down.
There we go, drag it down. I was trying to drag it up. So if I just drag it down off the thing, it pops up. I was trying to drag it up. Thank you. So now I've kind of got this set up here where I'm trying to make the shadow, and actually it'll work out pretty good if I bring this forward. But now what I need to do is this one here. I'm going to click on it. Watch this, and I'm going to set my alpha, which is this A here, to 0. So what it's going to do, if you take a look at this really quickly, is it's fading out. Let's turn off the base layer here. And you can kind of see how I've got this, this fade out look, essentially, that's going to be on top of the arm. I might even want to bring it a little darker. Whoops, wrong way. Okay, and now if I turn that on, the biggest major issue that you can probably see, oh, it won't zoom in anymore, is, well, I can see it on my monitor. Actually, it doesn't show up at all on the projector for you guys, is that I've got this line kind of going over the edge of the stroke here because it's a little lighter. So what I'm going to do then is grab the white arrow tool, and I'm just going to modify the corner edges of this. Let's turn off the shirt for a second so I can really see what I'm doing, so that it matches up perfectly with the inside of the stroke. And so now, if I do this and turn the shirt back on, you can kind of see, look at that, I've got this interesting, I don't like what it's doing there. The alpha is not completely working for me here because what's happening here? Let me put everything back to 0 here. I've got a weird kind of shadow there I was not expecting. I'm not quite sure why it's doing that. There, that's better. So I'm going to shrink the gradient a little bit. That's actually going to be smaller than the than the actual object. Ooh, there we go. And it's still a little bit off, but I just have to play with it a little bit and figure out what's going on, and adjust the object a little bit, that kind of thing. But you can kind of see how cool this is. Basically, I have a nice shadow now, essentially, that's going out from underneath the shirt, and I would just need to play with this a little bit more down here until I liked what it was doing. But you can essentially see how I've got a shadow under the shirt now that's falling over the arm, and again, it starts to look a little bit more natural, doesn't it? I might even try using a radial gradient instead of a linear. You guys know what would a radial gradient do? Yeah, it radiates out from a center in a circular shape instead of a pure linear shape. So you can also try radial gradients for things like maybe the head, okay, or something that's round like a ball that you might have in the scene, or something like that. So these gradients are really powerful, and they're really kind of cool, and they're a really nice way of being able to manipulate and give this idea of shading. Now, if you decide to use the brush tools, as I did earlier, use them very subtly. And I think one of the major tricks of doing that, let's do this. We've got to remember to name your layers so that you know if something starts going wrong, you know what you're going to get. Because like in Photoshop, you're going to end up maybe with 3, 4, 6, 7 layers in each symbol. And that can really get pretty complicated. So you want to start naming them. And I also really like the lock mechanism on the layers. Once you're done with the layer, lock it down. That prevents you from accidentally editing into it, and I guarantee that somebody in here is not going to do that, and you're going to ruin one of your shapes, and then 3 or 4 days later you're going to want to change it, and you're going to be sorry because you didn't put everything on a new layer. So lock stuff down. You may even have created a new layer, but if you're not careful, I can make a new layer, and then I forget what I'm doing, and I go back and click on this one, and if I start painting, guess what? I may have made a new layer, but I'm not working in the new layer. So that's really important to kind of lock. When you're done, lock the layer so you can't do anything.